Well, Griff, it seems every time I meet you, it's either on a roof, but today we're in a roof.
In a roof. It is definitely raining outside in typical fashion when we meet each other, yeah.
But we're talking about something pretty important for a lot of people, the Great British Insulation Scheme.
And what an amazing name for a scheme that nobody's ever heard of.
Yeah, and that was amazing. So there was a report in the Times last week that said there was a target of 100,000 homes?
100,000 homes, and they've nearly done 3,000, I think.
Wow. In what sort of time frame? This is in a few months?
This is in, I think, 6 to 9 months, depending when you count when the scheme opened and when people could actually go through with it. Very low uptake.
So why could that be? I mean, it sounds like a great scheme. It's great and it's British and it was championed by Boris Johnson. So what could possibly go wrong?
There's an answer.
What has gone wrong? Why aren't people taking it up?
Well, I think because nobody's ever heard of it. We've just mentioned that. If you say the Great British Insulation Scheme to people, I think you start thinking about news reports of certain other Great British insulation organisations that promote insulation across the country in different ways, shall we say. Nobody associates that with a scheme that you can get funding to help to insulate your home.
Yeah, so let's be clear on that. So people can go online. Let's had a quick look. It is quite a simple process. You go in, you put in where you live, you put in your postcode. I think you qualify if you're A down to D in England or in Scotland and Wales. You get a bonus point down to E. I think you have to have a poor energy performance certificate already on your house, which is another minefield. But actually applied for my mother's house, and she would qualify.
Okay, excellent. And how did you get on beyond that?
Then you have to select your energy provider.
Oh.
I didn't go past that because I thought as energy providers, I've had my own struggles trying to get a meter replaced. What are they going to be like trying to just get on board with insulation?
That's right, and I think that maybe isn't just the energy providers, it's everybody in that supply chain. I think the next step that would have happened would you would have received some kind of what should be an independent evaluation of that property and a report setting out just what kind of insulation might benefit you the most. Primarily everybody's looking to save money, aren't they, on the bills, but also to reduce the carbon footprint of the property.
Yeah, and I looked, there was all sorts of insulation on there, wasn't there? Literally the top down from the roof to the wall insulation to
everything
floor,
you can imagine,
and even some exotic exterior wall insulation I think was in there. So yeah, it sounds great, but that assessment process, that's normally quite off-putting when as soon as you hear there's going to be an assessor visit.
Yep, somebody coming traipsing around your house and looking in all the nooks and crannies, find out what's going on with the building itself. But the real problem is we haven't got enough energy assessors, stroke retrofit assessors, stroke the people then to coordinate the work afterwards. And if there's 1 or 2 properties applying in one certain geographical area, why go to see those, or why prioritise those when those people can go and work and do 20 or 30 across a whole housing estate somewhere, usually in the social housing market?
Yeah, right. So you suspect that the people who are qualified and are geared up to do this are cherry picking, should we say, either volume or easier projects.
And that's no bad thing. You know, we'd all do that in business. If we can get the chance of 20 times sales over here or 1 time sales over there for almost the same effort, neither of us live in a particularly built-up environment, shall we say? So they're going to be travelling to come to see us, and that's a lot of time and effort expended for possibly 1 job when they can go and do the same amount of work and perhaps gain 10, 15, 20 jobs for the same process.
Yeah, but skill seems to be a problem across this entire industry. Where we talk about solar or heat pumps or anything, there seems to be skill shortages.
The biggest growth in the whole sort of supply chain across construction is skills. As you'll know, we've just recently been involved in doing a video all about insulating homes and learning modules. There's 6 of them in total, launched by GTEC about a week ago actually, and that's had fantastic uptake because people are now looking at not only the experts in the sector, how can they get retrained, but also the consumers wanting to have a go themselves.
And I've been through that course and it's got valuable learning for everybody. So whether you qualify for the grant or you don't because of the house band you're in or your earnings or the hoops and loops, it's worth doing that because there's little nuggets of learning buried in all those modules. And I think on the back of it I've sold probably a few chimney sheets.
Oh, you've been selling the sheep, excellent. Yeah,
yes.
we like that up here in the Dales.
Yeah, and it was just amazing. Just you watch that and go, wow, I've got an open flue there is a solution for it. I'm not going to tell you, go and have a look at the training courses. And also, if you've been through the Great British Insulation Scheme and been successful and had something done, then put in the comments how you found that and how that was tackled and what sort of work that you had done. And I think reading that report that was in the Times, most houses are just having one thing done. It might be loft insulation.
That's right, and even loft insulation, while we were doing our new learning platform and our modules for people, even loft insulation can be really complicated to get right, to make sure that there aren't damp patches caused, or just the fact that usually people have got a loft full of stuff, as we can see a little bit in front of us here, and all of that has to come out to do it properly, and then it's got to have something built to go back on. So it's not always the really easy win that people think it is, and I think that can put people off as well. But overall, whilst what we found is that improvements over the walls, the loft, the underfloor, if you can get under the floor, that could have a reduction. We worked out on a typical house of around about £900 to £1,000 a year. It didn't actually do an awful lot to the EPC, and that's where some of these schemes fall down again, because they're based on an improvement on the EPC.
Again, dig through that course, because you'll see that worked example, but it's quite staggering actually. That's a lot of money. It was nearly 60% reduction in the heating bill of a typical house by doing some quite simple measures, but doing them correctly. And that, I think that's part of the problem with insulation, that everyone's probably in the past been up in the loft with a bit of fiberglass and rolled a bit out and think that's it. Things have sort of changed and procedures have changed.
Yeah, and there's a lot to get it right, like any of these fabric measures or even the active measures like the solar or the heat pumps, to just get that sweet spot, make sure that you're not just doing it as a token, and so it actually means something to you as a householder or as a building owner or as somebody doing it for your customers. You've got to make sure you get all of that detail right.
Now, is insulation, obviously you spend a lot of your time with heat pumps and solar and things like that, and obviously there's requirements for them. Is better insulation a prerequisite for putting in a heat pump and getting that other grant that's been talked about a lot, the old boiler upgrade scheme?
Boiler upgrade scheme.
Yeah.
So I've heard a rumour on that there might be a little bit of money coming into that budget. So keep an eye out there. But yeah, so the basics of what you can do for the boiler upgrade scheme should be done, unless you've got an exemption type arrangement. Maybe it's a protected property, class 1, class 2, etc. But actually, if that's possible to do, you should do it anyway, because there might be a small amount of money required to be spent on improving the insulation, the draft proofing, etc. And that could save you a huge amount of money on running costs, on running your home. The example we did in the video, remember that sort of £800 to £1,000 was per year.
Yes.
That's year on year on year. It wasn't over a period of 10 or 15 years. And that's a lot of money in anybody's bank.
Yeah, that's probably one of the best investments you can ever make, actually, even in the current climate.
And if you're trying to go for something like a heat pump, then that's the insulation's going to lower the demand. That's going to possibly make the heat pump unit slightly smaller. That's going to make it cheaper to buy. It might mean that you go from something like a 13 kilowatt to a 9 or a 10 kilowatt. That might mean then that the threshold for having to apply to the DNO, the people who provide the cables and the metering to the homes, you might, with a larger heat pump, need to apply first before you could install it. And with a smaller one, usually you can install it and then just let them know afterwards, a bit like with an EV charger.
Oh, okay, I didn't realise the same process you'd go through for that. Yeah, so better insulation, lower heating demand.
Less hassle with the DNO, and really importantly, because we're in Yorkshire, less money each year on your heating bills.
There you go. This sounds like a win all round, so perhaps we should call it the Great Yorkshire Insulation Scheme with a bit of heat pump upgrade on the back of it.
That's right, and don't forget the solar and battery as well, just to top and tail it.
Check out the course. I've left a link in the description for that, especially if you fall outside that A to D/E if you're in Scotland, council tax band. Just dive in there. Yeah, you might actually, could be one of the wisest investments of a few hours of your time you could ever spend.
And if you're a heat pump installer and want to perhaps add that little bit of extra to your customers, or to get more wins in terms of deploying heat pumps, then take a look at it as well, because you might find a little bit of improvement work helps overall, reduces the air changes, and suddenly that heat becomes a really viable option for the customer.
Goodbye from the best insulated loft in Yorkshire.